Season 2 is the season where Lost gradually begins to fall apart. That's not to say that Season 2 isn't also very entertaining, because it is. In fact, I'd say this is where the show reaches its apex. It's here where we find out that there were more survivors from the plane crash. We learn more about the others, and even get to meet Ben Linus, their enigmatic leader. But the real strength here is that the show develops a central theme between science and faith, which is an awesome theme to have on a show where half the shit happening doesn't seem to have much of a point. This is where Locke and Jack feel like real people, having a real debate that any one of us might have if we were on a mysterious island.
Look, you want to push the button, you do it yourself.
If it's not real, then what are you doing here, Jack? Why did you come back? Why do you find it so hard to believe?
Why do you find it so easy?
It's never been easy!
However, just because a house is still standing, that doesn't mean there aren't millions of termites rapidly eating away at the floorboard. And not only did Lost have termites, the thing that eventually ruined the show was ironically the thing that made it interesting in the first place, the mysteries. In Season 2, had the writers simply fleshed out the mysteries established in Season 1, the show could have continued its upward ascent as one of the greatest dramas of all time. But they didn't. They just kept creating more and more and more and more and more mysteries, to the point that it eventually got ridiculous. Like, you knew things were bad when there were even suggestions that the fucking dog was special too.
Come here, come on.
I need you to go find my son. He's over there in that bamboo forest, unconscious. I need you to go wake him up. Okay? He has work to do.
What, did Walt's powers rub off on Vincent when he petted him? How could he understand him? Also, Jack was already awake by the time Vincent ran past him, so that grand mission of his seems kind of pointless, doesn't it? The root of the show's problems lies not so much in who was writing for Lost, but how it was being written. In a podcast, Carlton Cuse once explained that the show was being developed on an episode-to-episode basis.
We don't have we do have a general plan as to where we're going, but I think what keeps the show organic and real is the fact that we write the episodes episode by episode, and we really try to we feed a lot on what the show tells us. We've certain pieces of mythology the audience really responds to, and then we decide to spend more time on those aspects of the mythology.
Now, that's not at all different from how other television shows are written. Breaking Bad, for instance, was done the same way. But the difference between a show like Breaking Bad and Lost is that Breaking Bad didn't need to constantly redefine its environment. The backdrop of New Mexico never needed an explanation, so the show was just about the characters. With Lost, the mysteries about the island were the most fascinating part of the show, so the writers probably felt they needed to keep shoving mysteries in their viewers' faces in order to keep people watching. In retrospect, many of the mysteries inserted in Season 2 feel like they were put in the show out of obligation, rather than because the writers actually planned on explaining them. It's almost as if there was a quota of mysteries that each episode had to reach, regardless of if it would screw up the show's continuity or not, because a ton of the mysteries seemed to serve no purpose other than to briefly titillate the viewer. So at the beginning of Season 2, Locke and Jack descend the hatch and discover that there's a dude named Desmond Hume living inside of it. And because why not, it turns out Jack once met Desmond when they were off the island. That's weird already, but here's where things get really weird. The hatch is one of several stations put on the island by a scientific group called the Dharma Initiative, and this particular station has a button on it that must be pushed every 108 minutes, otherwise the world will explode from an electromagnetic buildup or something.
What was all that about then?
Just saving the world.
So, the Dharma Initiative. I hate it. I think the worst thing that ever happened to Lost was the invention of the Dharma Initiative, who are so nebulous and so mysterious that basically nothing about them makes sense. They may as well have been formed to make mysteries. Seriously, ask a casual Lost fan basic questions about them, like what they were doing or what their ultimate goal was, and they'll probably just frown at you. Sure, we're told that the Dharma Initiative was studying electromagnetism and wormholes on the island in the hope of creating some utopian paradise, and the first time someone on the show talks about it, you might just shrug and go with it.
Every 108 minutes, the button must be pushed.
Electromagnetism, whatever. But then you hear about it again.
Island powers, easy. Wormholes and electromagnetics. Got that one sorted.
And you realize how little sense it all makes. If pushing the button was so important, couldn't they have automated the system using some very basic technology? Why would they leave the fate of the planet in the hands of just two people anyway? And why did they need to enter in the numbers before pressing the button? Why did they build hieroglyphics into the final countdown sequence of the numbers board? Why were the numbers on the side of the hatch? Who put them there? Why was the word quarantine on the hatch door and on the doors of another station? And what exactly is powering all of these electrical stations anyway? They're on an island separated from civilization. Are the stations fucking powered by mysteries? Then things get even more confusing when the characters discover there's an orientation video, because it turns out that sections of the tape were edited and moved to other parts of the island. Why was it edited? And then when Locke and Mr. Echo head to another Dharma station, they find a new orientation video that claims that pushing the button is just a psychological experiment.
Station 5, or the Pearl, is a monitoring station where the activities of participants in Dharma Initiative projects can be observed and recorded. Your tour of duty in the Pearl will last 3 weeks, and during this time you and your partner will observe a psychological experiment in progress. These team members are not aware that they are under surveillance, or that they are the subjects of an experiment. What is the nature of the experiment, you might ask? What do these subjects believe they are accomplishing as they struggle to fulfill their tasks? You, as the observer, don't need to know.
But then when they elect to not push the button in the season finale, it's clear that it really would have caused a catastrophic event. So then what was up with this new orientation video? Why would they downplay the work of dudes who are systematically saving the planet? It kinda seems like an important subject to treat with respect. Did the Dharma Initiative really think it was a good idea to simultaneously run a sheltered, inhospitable psychological experiment on people in control of a doomsday device? But wait, there's more unresolved mysteries. Why did Desmond continue taking the vaccines even after he realized they didn't do anything? Why did Kate's dead dad briefly possess Sawyer?
Why did you kill me?
Yeah, that really happened. Why does this black horse from Kate's memory suddenly appear on the island? What was up with the lockdown at the hatch? What caused it? What was the point of drawing this elaborate invisible map when literally no one else besides the Dharma Initiative would ever see it? Why was there a Dharma food drop? What caused it? Was it linked to the lockdown? Because that makes no sense, seeing as there's a lifetime of supplies in the hatch already. Plus, how would the people in the hatch even be able to get to the food if the hatch was in lockdown? Also, who's delivering these food drops? Is it a plane? A drone? And if the Dharma Initiative is no longer active on the island, why are these drops still happening anyway? And yes, I'm aware of the new man in charge epilogue, I'll get to that. How does this random woman get a vision from Mr. Echo's brother?
Says you were a good priest.
Who says that?
Yemi.
Why did the others inject Michael when he got to their beach? Why does Tom wear a fake beard? Why were all the capsules from the Pearl being dumped in the middle of the woods? This is also around the time that some of the characters start treating the island as a person, as something with a will of its own.
Sacrifice that the island demanded.
Excuse me?
Nothing.
But why does the island help only certain characters? Why does it give Locke his ability to walk and continually heal him? And why did it cure Rose's cancer, but not help, say, this guy? Or this guy? Or this poor bastard? Oh, what a way to go. Also, Locke's ability to walk is occasionally robbed from him whenever he loses faith in the island. But why? The island gave him the ability to walk before he'd even known about the island, so it's not like it was rewarding his faith to begin with. Also, and yes, what is up with this giant mutant talking bird that says Hurley's name?
That bird just say my name?
Now, after listing off all of those unanswered questions, you might be thinking to yourself, "Hey Rite, 27, why do these questions from Season 2 matter? I thought this was a review of Lost's ending." Well, here's the thing, Strawman. The mysteries and the ending are symbiotic. You can't talk about one without talking about the other. Lost, more than anything else, was a show about mysteries, right?
The show never becomes completely vacant of mystery because it's a mystery show.
Every second of the show's existence was used to fuel mysteries and ask questions, and the show's creators gave every indication that everything happening on the screen had a purpose. As far back as 2005, the producers said they knew how they wanted the show to end, and in 2007, ABC gave them a deal to flesh out the ending of the series 3 years out, which is an almost unheard of deal for a network show. And all the while, the show's writers hyped that they knew what they were doing, saying that they didn't want to give away all the answers at once, and reassuring people that they understood the importance of clarity.
I loved hearing all the theories that are out there. Things do happen for a reason, and there is this sort of force that's in play that connects all of our characters together, and it's all going to come together. We're going to see a lot of that, I think, going forward, which is really cool because it has been thought out. It's not just something that's being made up. There's something very cool going on.
Even the show itself gave the impression that every little detail mattered, literally.
What if everything that happened here happened for a reason?
Lost merchandise was sold with "Everything happens for a reason" plastered on it. TV specials were produced that centered entirely on what the answers could be.
Who does their hair?
Meanwhile, hints and potential explanations for questions were put out on the official Lost podcast, produced by Lindelof and Cuse. Then there was the Lost Experience, an interactive game that meshed canonical backstory information with video. There were also Lost webisodes.
It's very special.
What do you mean special?
A Lost Encyclopedia, a book claiming to be from the dude who got sucked into the jet engine that actually made it onto the New York Times bestseller list, and a retrofitted 80s series called Mysteries of the Universe that looked into the origins of the Dharma Initiative.
Who is this man, and what does he have to do with the Dharma Initiative?
Episodes were enhanced and aired on ABC with pop-up video-style tidbits about what was happening on the screen, tidbits that often hadn't even been clarified in the show. ABC even created Lost University, an interactive online crash course of the Lost universe. Yes, I repeat, Lost University.
So in our first tutoring session, let's focus on some commonly heard phrases that will teach you a thing or two about some of the major characters and themes on the show.
I got your back.
All right, you ready?
Let's do this. Let's do this.
Let's do this.
Even the box sets for Lost centered on finding answers. The complete collection for Lost contained a recovered Black Rock journal entry, an Ankh with a secret message from Jacob, and a blacklight torch to uncover clues. Clues! Not even answers! Clues to answers! And if the daunting quantity and frequency of the mysteries, and the implicit understanding that mysteries exist to be answered, still doesn't justify why these mysteries were breathlessly analyzed and recorded, feast your eyes on this ABC advertisement for the show.
You think they care about you or about any of us?
Who do you care about?
The time for questions.
Why is my name written down on this?
Is over.
I promise I'll tell you everything.
ABC's Lost, the final season.
And then there's this. This is not photoshopped. The complete collection for the show literally promised that every single question would be resolved. Seriously, if a Lost fanboy ever tells you that you're nitpicking for bringing up unsolved mysteries, kindly remind them of Lost University, the black light torch to uncover clues, and the show's commercial promise to answer everything. And that's why you can't mention the show's ending without also mentioning all the unanswered mysteries. Fans kept track of them all because they rightfully expected them all to be answered. Even in 2010, when the show was winding down, fans were still asking the producers about mysteries from back in season 1.
Well, all right, this is a very simple one. What's up with Walt?
This was later spun by Lost fanboys and Lindelof apologists that the fans had unrealistic expectations, but that's bullshit. The show created those expectations and fueled those expectations. When you give the impression that everything matters, and you run ads that look and sound like this...
The answers are coming. ABC's Lost, the final season.
And then you have your producers run out and say things like this...
It's a show that really rewards continued viewing. It's really a show that, like a really good novel, builds up and up and up and up, and the rewards are exponential.
And then you box all the episodes together and tell people that everything gets answered, the onus is on you to fucking deliver. And spoiler alert, the show didn't do that. I mean, it's not like we can even pretend that these mysteries didn't matter, because more often than not, the show would come to a grinding halt just to display them, and ramp up the music to let you know how significant this shit was. I mean, did you hear the 15-second violin solo during the fortune teller scene?
Oh my god, he knew.
What about the violin solo after Walt told Locke not to open the hatch? This doesn't exactly connote unimportant. And don't get me started on the slow, dramatic, tense, 20-second build-up at the end of a first-season episode where we find out that the numbers are on the side of the hatch. If the show wanted us to forget this crap, it wasn't doing a very good job. It should also be noted that while a lot of the mysteries were just sort of in the background, many of them had an immediate impact on the plot and the characters. For instance, one of the biggest mysteries in Season 2 came in the season premiere, when Walt suddenly appeared in front of Shannon, dripping wet and talking backwards.
What are you doing here?
This was a massive mystery that everyone discussed, And when Walt appeared to Shannon later again in the season, it resulted in Shannon accidentally getting killed. People wanted to know, how was this happening since Walt was being held by the others? Why was he talking backwards? Why was he dripping wet? And what was the point of all this? This hugely important mystery, this mystery that led to a main character being murdered, was never answered. In hindsight, it's kind of amazing that the writers couldn't help but throw yet another Walt mystery at the audience, even as they were systematically purging him from the show. Which, by the way, supports my theory that they use these mysteries more as a prop to entice viewers, and less because they actually meant something. Now, after all that, there's one more thing I have to mention. Despite all of its unresolved questions, up to this point, Lost was still a hugely entertaining show, because the core of it was still great. And because everyone just sort of expected the answers to get resolved eventually, it was easy to shelve the mysteries and just sort of concentrate on the show. In Season 2, we didn't know how silly and convoluted the others were. All we knew was that they lurked in the forests, they were deadly, and they kidnapped people. And that made for good TV.
They're smart. And they're animals. And they could be anywhere at any time.
See, that's some spooky shit.
They came the first night that we got here. They took 3 of us. Nothing happened for 2 weeks. Then they came back and took 9 more.
They kidnapped children? What monsters? And they're doing it because some dude named Jacob told them to. Boy, that Jacob guy sounds like a real asshole.
The kids! They took the kids!
Well, don't you worry, Ana Lucia, because the Lost Gang is on the case, and they're not gonna rest until they've rescued every single child. They will not sleep until they've returned each and every one. Oh wait, they left without them. Oops! Sorry, kids. Maybe if your characters weren't so fucking uninteresting, the writers wouldn't have forgotten about you. Have fun living the rest of your short lives on this remote island with your creepy kidnappers. You know, the ones who'll inject you with things, lock you in rooms, and perform tests on you. Have fun. Don't worry, we'll at least tell your parents what happened to you.
If we get any questions that we don't want to answer, or that we can't answer, let's just keep our mouths shut.
Actually, we'll never tell anyone. Ah!